Hello, all benders and non-benders, and welcome back to Avatar Generations. Today is the day. The Rise of Kyoshi event is in the game. And we're going to go over some of the details right now. We do have a lovely little 14-day login bonus here. For some reason it gave me 2. Not sure why. But you'll see we have some event currency here. Never a bad thing. And a new type of currency called timeline currency. We'll be getting into that very, very soon. Of course, have all the usual nature stuff. Always good. And then actually finishing off with a very nice 10 summon tickets. Never a bad thing at all. So, what do we have to go over today? We're going to look at basically 3 main things here. We're going to look at the current events. We're going to look at kind of the timeline interface. We're not going to look at the missions themselves. And then we're going to look at, of course, the new event banner. So, first of all, you'll notice before getting into any of that, we can get higher account ranks. And something I forgot about, that means we can get higher energy caps. More energy. Yes, always good. Always good. I'm up to 132 maximum energy at the moment and climbing. Very cool stuff there. If we take a look at the events, we've got 3 new pages. We have Energy Endurance. We've seen this one before. This one's literally just spend energy, do all that stuff. You get free loot. Bada bing, bada boom. Easy peasy. We have the event, kind of the update quest, replacing the Umashu one. We have this current quest line for the whole update, where you can get a nice pile of summon tickets, a nice pile of Peace Chaos tickets, and then topping it all off with a skill token if you can complete 300 event challenges. So that's very cool. And then this is the current Rise of Kyoshi event challenge list here. We do have, of course, the currency here. And then a lot of this is focused on Avatar faction heroes. Important to keep in mind, that actually does count for Aang as well. But of course, Kyoshi being kind of the new one. And nice thing is, young Kyoshi you can get free to play from the new timelines. So that's very nice. But if we go through it here, we have Win Arts Expeditions with Avatar faction heroes on the team. Always good. Upgrade a Avatar faction hero. So if you have any Aang's to upgrade, or your brand new young Kyoshi, or Avatar Kyoshi if you get her from the summons. Very easy, very good to do there. Ascending Avatar heroes, again, very straightforward. Some Peace Chaos tickets for clearing boss fights, never a bad thing. Especially if you can get in and complete these stage 5 bosses. Get you some new stuff there, not bad at all. We do have this particular quest where it's actually for adventuring in the Rise of Kyoshi timeline. So when you kind of get into that interface, that's going to apply to these quests. Always good. And then you get actually some tickets back, basically, for summoning in the current event. Very cool stuff. Completing adventures with Avatar faction heroes, Aang, Kyoshi, characters like that. Very simple stuff. Now, let's take a look at the shop here. This is very cool. Get some 4-star support and a 4-star relic, both of which are new. We have Pen Peng, very cool Sky Bison, which actually increases the accuracy of Team Kyoshi faction heroes. So that is its own faction. Very cool stuff there. And then Jisa's Journal. Decreased damage received from Exile, Rebel, and Outlaw faction heroes by 15%. A very interesting defensive relic, specifically for the Avatar. So I'm wondering if this is meant to be for young Kyoshi, maybe to fight off the new pirate mission. And of course, characters like Zuko will kind of bounce off of this as well. Get some free tickets, some free Peace Chaos tickets. Some skip tickets if you care about that sort of thing, and then some energy as well. Always good. So yeah, that's kind of what we've got in the event shop there. Just kind of some neat little things here is the exchange shop has been upgraded. so that you can swap out some of your 1-star meditation beads for 2-star and 3-star meditation beads. If you've been running short on that, if the boss fights have not been doing enough for you, we now have another way to get those beads always good. Just taking a look here at the event summon shop here, we do have the Desecrated Fountain. Decreases the speed of each enemy that triggers a turn bar increase effect by 20% for 3 turns, 1 time per enemy. Basically, this is punishing them for getting turn meter increase, turn bar increase. If you did have the coins for it and you wanted to spend them on that, you can. Probably not what I would recommend, because we actually do have quite a nice little pile of new characters available in here. So yeah, just kind of something to keep in mind there. It's an option, but we do have quite a few options here as well. So let's just take a look at the new interface here, the Avatar Timelines interface. We have Rise of Kyoshi here, timeline unlocked, very cool. We're not going to go into that right now because I kind of do want to leave it as a surprise for you guys, and that's not really what we're going to be discussing here in this video. We're more so discussing the event side of things necessarily. We'll leave this for you all to discover and experience for yourselves, but do know that you will be getting at least a young Kyoshi out of it, and then there's actually a few other ways to get young Kyoshi. We do have a new timeline shop here. Now you'll notice this has its own currency. We saw that earlier. This currency you basically do get from timeline events, basically. And it's kind of like arena coins where you have 2 different shops. We have, of course, the featured shop, which has a new 5-star relic for mind characters in the form of the Spider Snake Extract. You actually gain affinity advantage for the first 3 turns of battle, basically meaning you have the higher chance of critting, doing more damage, all that stuff. And a 35% chance to lower the resistance of each enemy by 25% for 1 turn when the caster attacks. Kind of a cool little thing there, where if you're having a hard time getting your debuffs to stick, this might help you out. And it is technically a 5-star relic that you can get for free if you do happen to get enough of those currency items. It's hard to say as of right now how common that's going to be. We'll kind of see, and there is some competition for those that we'll talk about in a minute, but just something to keep in mind. You can also get, of course, some young Kyoshi characters here, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we do have a new relic set here and more of Peng Peng, always cool. This is the Justice set, basically increasing defense and then increases your defense by a further amount whenever you enter a positive stance. I have a feeling that this is meant to be a possible signature set for Avatar Kyoshi, and you'll see why in a bit. But if we do go to resources here, not unlike the arena battles, we have a resource section that gives summon tickets and gives peace chaos tickets, and it looks like we give 15 a month possibly. Again, we'll see how rare these materials actually are, but it's definitely something to keep in mind here if you're struggling for resources. This is an exceptionally good source. So yeah, and then just to kind of cap off the video here, there's so much I could talk about with this. It's not even funny, but I'm trying to keep this very straightforward to just kind of what you need to know right this second. And what you need to know right this second is that there is a brand new banner here featuring 2 characters. Now this one is a 200 pity banner. In the patch notes, it was listed as a limited Avatar timeline banner, timeline event. I don't know if that's different from like when just Boomy was released or Zhong. But in this case, we actually have 2 new 5-star heroes, Avatar Kyoshi herself and Ranji, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Looking at Avatar Kyoshi here, she is a 5-star defense earthbender character. Not very shocking there. And we do have quite a few interesting abilities. Now, unfortunately, we don't have The descriptions for what types of damage these moves do, I have no doubt they're quite powerful, but we're not going to be able to look at that just yet. Hopefully by the time I'm able to do an analysis video, Rava willing, I get an Avatar Kyoshi. I'd be very sad if I didn't. But hopefully by then we'll actually have some descriptions. But if you take a look here, it deals force damage to one enemy and trigger the hidden skill Aftershock if any buff is removed by the caster. So basically I'm assuming that what force damage does is it eliminates one of their buffs. That's what it makes sense to me. If we take a look at Dust Up here, her advanced skill deals 2 hits of disruptive damage to one enemy and triggers the hidden skill Overwhelming Wind if 2 or more buffs are present on the enemy. Again, it sounds like disruptive damage has to do with buffs. Hopefully we'll see very soon. Now you may have noticed, those mentioned hidden skills. If we take a look at these, we do in fact have some interesting skills. The Aftershock skill deals nature damage to all enemies. I would love to know what that does, but we're not sure yet. And increases the defense and crit rate of all allies by 5% for 1 turn for each elemental effect on the enemy. So if they have quite a few elemental debuffs, this will increase the defense and crit rate of all allies by a pretty chunky amount, not gonna lie. And then we have the advanced skill here. You will notice there's no cooldown on this. I think these skills trigger immediately after if you use one of these moves and the buffs are present. So I think it's basically like she uses 2 moves, but we shall see. Deals overwhelm damage to all enemies. I don't know what overwhelm damage is, but it sounds really cool. And a 50% chance to remove all buffs from each ally. If you've got an Iroh or any other enemies with defense up or tenacity or just something bothering the snot out of you, Kyoshi doesn't care. She's just going to wipe it out. And then if we take a look at her passive here, we have Vengeance. Enter a Vengeance state for 1 turn. Now, a nice thing is this was shown on the Discord, so we don't have a description in game, but we do have a description in Discord. Basically what this does, it increases her damage by like 50%, something crazy like that, and then gives her a 50% chance to counterattack whenever one of her allies are attacked. Very similar to Kyoshi Warrior Sokka. Think that, where when his allies attacked, he will fight back immediately. Very much similar to that. And then all damage dealt by the caster increases additionally based on their defensive stat, which means every single one of her attacks gets defense scaling based on this skill, and their attacks cannot be countered. So if you're having trouble with Suki constantly smacking back at you, Kyoshi doesn't care. She's going to scale on defense, which means she's going to be bulky as mess, which means we're probably going to have another insanely bulky Earthbender to deal with in Arena. And she's just going to do an insane amount of damage, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, very curious to see what this does. And that Vengeance state triggers whenever an ally is attacked for 1 turn, and will probably go up on skill ups. She's just going to start smacking the enemies. It's crazy. Going to be very excited to see what that does. Now, of course, we got to talk about Ranji. Really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But she is a new offensive firebender character. Very cool design here. Absolutely love it. She's kicking, throwing fire around like crazy. And if we're judging by her skill icons here, sounds like she's going to be dangerous. Looking at her basic here, we actually do have the descriptions for this, which is kind of nice. Deals explosive damage to one enemy. This attack cannot land as a weak hit. Explosive damage means that any damage dealt to the front line hits all other opponents. So basically, if she's hitting the front line, it becomes an AoE. That's pretty cool. Now this one is interesting. I was taking a look at this earlier, and this is very, very interesting if you get her accuracy nice and high. Deals 3 hits, 3, of firebending damage to one enemy. This attack cannot land as a weak hit. And damage dealt increases by 20% if the target is in the front line and enters Fury state for 1 turn. There's a lot to break down there. First of all, Firebending damage means that that hit, assuming that they don't resist it, will inflict the fire debuff. She does that 3 times. Assuming each one procs, you could put the enemy in a rank 2 fire debuff with a rank 1 as well, so you'd be one more rank 1 away from just straight up getting a rank 3 fire debuff in one hit, which is nuts. It can't land as a weak hit, which is also nuts because that means that they're not going to have that basically immunity to anything that checks their resistance. And then enters a Fury state, which just straight up increases damage dealt by 25%. Very powerful offensive hero. This move might even be the new Fire Nation Zuko move, where it just does an insane amount of damage, but we shall see. It's hard to say right now, but we shall see. She's very clearly meant to be slamming all over frontline characters. And then take a look at her basic here. Increases damage by 15% for 1 turn when a damage increase effect is granted to the caster, up to 2 times per turn. I'm not sure what exactly it refers to as a damage increase effect. I think this means like sometimes it's like relics. It might include even like this move where damage dealt increases by 20% if targets in the front line. Maybe it's kind of hard to say, but I imagine it's something where depending on who you have supporting her, it could really crank her up. Now, the last thing we're going to look at here as far as characters go is we do have the young 4-star Kyoshi, just labeled as Earth Kingdom Kyoshi. This is one that you'll be able to get from the timeline missions, and she also has a higher than average 4-star rate in this banner. So let's get into it here. We do have her basic Jagged Basalt. Deals slicing damage to all enemies, so it is an AoE, and a 35% chance to remove 1 buff from each enemy. She really, really hates enemy buffs. She just really hates them. Just a reminder that slicing damage, 50% chance to inflict bleed, which is seen as a negative state. And that basically means that your enemy cannot heal, very similar to Bounty and the special debuff. If you've used Kiwak at all, her AoE does the exact same thing, so you're already kind of familiar with it. And then looking at Force of Earth, deals earthbending damage to all enemies, another AoE, inflicting the Earth debuff, and a 50% chance to inflict a Fearful State on each enemy for 1 turn, deals additional damage to backline targets. Fearful State weakens the attack of the target and increases the damage they take. So not only can they not do damage, but they gonna suffer. So that's pretty cool. This is already seeming like a pretty fun 4-star character. And then looking at I'm Not Alone, increase the damage of all allies by 10% for 1 turn when the caster inflicts Fearful State on any enemy. This is happening once per turn. So basically, a very cool support effect for her whole team, increasing their damage if you can get that Fearful State from her advanced. Very cool stuff there. And then we do also have a new 5-star relic here. Very cool. The Inheritance, usable on Team Kyoshi characters. 50% chance to grant increased defense to all allies for 1 turn when the opponent uses a multi-hit attack. So if, say, you're fighting Fire Nation Zuko, if you're fighting even Xingfu with his advance, something like that, if your allies are getting hit more than once, this is going to trigger and really crank up their defense. If it procs that chance, this will happen 2 times per battle. So kind of cool there, kind of cool. Of course, we do have the standard 3%, and we have Ranji and Kyoshi sharing a 1%, the Inheritance at a 1.5. And then the rest of it is split up between the Badger Mole, Twee and Law, the Wolf Spirit, and the newcomer, the Goat Gorilla. The Goat Gorilla is actually in the Tales of the Four Nations now, as well as some other characters, including Peace Aang. So if you missed out on him the first time and you were wanting to summon on this banner, it might be something to keep in mind. You never know. So yeah, that's all we're going to get into for today, because frankly, I'm just kind of itching to summon on this banner, not going to lie. I'm hype. I'm really hype. Nice thing is too, if we're talking about what's kind of coming up, first of all, we have a nice long time before the next Peace Chaos banner. We have over a month or about a month. And the next banner next week is actually confirmed to be a powerful opponent banner. So if you're worried about saving tickets, you do have a little bit of time before the next event banner. Very good to know. And I, for one, am very much wanting to try out Avatar Kyoshi, and I'm really hoping to get some luck in that field. So yeah, until then, we are going to close this out here. We have talked about a lot, and quite frankly, we haven't even come close to covering all of it. But that will do for today, I think. So hope y'all are excited about this very cool update, and we shall see you in the next one. Have a good one.